Bam!
Boom.
Welcome everybody. This is my second interview as part of the Momentum program. Just getting some powerful people on to have a conversation, learn a bit more about them. And specifically what we're looking at is how to build momentum in your life. And I'm going to introduce you today to the gentleman who's just here with me. This gentleman's name is Fergusson. He also calls himself the Movement Monk. And I heard of him through another mutual friend, connected up on Facebook, and I checked it out. I saw some of his videos and I saw some of the ways he moves his body. And one of the particular things that he talked about was tension. And we're going to get to that at the end of this. So we're going to talk about different things. And I just really wanted to introduce you to Benny Fergusson, the Movement Monk. So welcome to the call, mate. How's your day?
It's going well. Thanks for having me, Brock. It's good to be here. And yeah, it's gone pretty good. I'm looking forward to sharing some powerful stuff for everyone that's watching and listening today.
Looking forward to getting some key insights. One for myself, and two for all you guys as well, because I think that's a powerful space. The more I'm able to receive, the more I'm able to give to everyone. And yeah, it's just so lovely to get to know you, mate. Just right before we had this press the record button, we've had a bit of a chat off camera, and now, just good to get straight into it. So let's look at that theme around momentum. What is momentum? Building momentum in your world, in your life. What's that to you?
Yeah, well, I really like when we were talking before about it, and the thing that I always think about with momentum is thinking about what is the seed of momentum and where is it leading towards. And I really loved what you were saying before, for those of you who weren't there, which is everyone, talking about how we can get stuck in the momentum. I remember when a long time ago, before I was the movement monk, I used to work in a corporate job, and I used to work behind a desk in the marketing department, actually, at Melbourne Aquarium. And at the time, I was, it was the whole kind of momentum of go to uni, work hard, become the manager, become the CEO. I don't know what I intended back then, but so I worked really hard, and there was a lot of momentum towards that. But then there was also a lot of momentum towards my body kind of becoming, I basically felt like that. And so it's really made me start to become very aware and conscious about where is this taking me? What is the momentum of this particular action? And where is that going to lead? And, having conversations with people like yourself and talking with people who have been there before. And yeah, for me, that's the most important part of the momentum, is the first step that encourages the next, and making sure that that's for my highest good.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I'm always curious about that too, because with a lot of our clients, I'm sure you have this too in your business, in your work. A lot of people have that fear of leaving what they are doing to go and do what they love. Yeah. How did that all show up for you? Did you get redundant? Did you choose something different? Did you just know what happened?
Yeah, it's an interesting thing, because you see it these days, and I think it's probably becoming more prevalent, where people are seeing other people live their passions and doing what they love, and it's starting to become like a thing. Oh, I want to do that too. And I would say it was something that was so obvious that I couldn't notice it. And I've always been into taking care of my body and health. Along the way, other things definitely shifted the priority. But here I was as a marketing coordinator at the time, and then in my lunch breaks I was a personal trainer taking care of basically the whole staff. So it was when basically my wages started to overtake my actual job, and I was getting pretty burnt out as well. So it was obvious to take that next step, and I think probably the biggest thing for me was, and for other people listening, is I think everyone is masterful at something, and they become the person, the guy or the girl that other people ask questions about.
Yeah.
I was the guy, and even though my health wasn't, I suppose, at its peak, while I was working in a business corporate type environment back then, I was still really conscientious about, what I ate. So I'd bring in and make my lunches. So all of a sudden I became the guy that people are like, oh, what's good to eat? I'm like, well, I can tell you what I like and what works for me. Yeah. So I think I kept gathering information and noticing what are the questions that people are asking me about and what questions do I enjoy answering. And then just took it from there. And I think like everything, you just got to kind of clench your butt cheeks up a little bit and just take that leap of faith into the unknown and see what happens as well. And you don't always get it right, as long as it's not enough of a blow that, knocks you out of the water too much, Yeah. Yeah.
That I always look at it. What's the biggest risk?
Yeah.
The biggest risk. The worst case in Australia, the worst case is you lose everything. You can still eat, you can still breathe, you can still walk, you can still do something else, and you can just get back in the game. It's a bit different. You go to Thailand, for instance, you're out of the game. If you don't work every day, you don't eat. You don't. And the people over there are happy. It's a different thing.
Yeah. Yeah. It reminds me of when I was, long time ago, I say a long time ago, I'm still very young, but I was doing my master practitioner in NLP quite a while ago, and that was a fun journey. Anyway, one of the two things that we talked about was the two key human needs were safety and belonging. And I think, in Australia, we've got such a big net. And, like you talk about places like Thailand or, we go more off the beaten track, that net, it isn't so comforting. But they have a different perception of what is safety and what is belonging. And, I think that there were the two things that I came up against when I was looking to shift into something that was, it stretched me. Yeah. Yeah.
I like that. So you've used some mind tools like NLP.
Yes.
And how have you incorporated that? Because I noticed that too. There's sometimes in the Western thing, particularly, we seem to function from here a lot.
Yes.
But then our body has its neurology and the chemicals that it produces and so forth that can really stop us, even if we know to do something different.
Yes.
We'll keep standing with bad posture. We'll keep eating the wrong foods. We'll keep saying the wrong things because it's in our neurology. It's in our, not quite DNA, but almost that. So how are you changing that with people to help build momentum?
Yeah. So I definitely, when I first started, working with the body, it was really just about the physical. But then I came up against that wall when I was working with people that, at the time I got quite frustrated because things that I was sharing with them, I knew worked. And I'm one who is very big on practicing what I preach. And so I have confidence in things that work and which is where I recommend them from. But anyway, the challenge wasn't the thing that worked. It was helping it stick with the person.
Yeah.
So I took it upon myself to understand, okay, what are all the cogs that are turning beneath the surface? There's a really great movie I actually watched just recently called Inside Out. And
it was out when I went to the video store. Tell me about it.
Yeah, really, really cool. It's, I don't know who it's targeted at, whether kids or adults. I enjoyed it a lot. It's an animated movie, and it goes through the developmental stage of a girl. And all through that, it's taking a filmed in, basically into the control panel of her mind. And there's different elements that operate her mind. There's joy, there's anger, there was sadness, there was disgust, and I think safety or something like that.
Yeah, right.
Anyway, all of these played a part, but it was a really, really interesting and powerful movie to start to decode. Okay, all these little things work in the mind, and there would be a situation and, joy would come up and, come to the forefront and cause a certain response, but then sadness might happen, all that sort of thing. Anyway, I did realize early on that the mind and body are innately linked, and that it's important to observe and understand, and then look to shift, because we're creatures of habit, we're creatures of pattern, and they're very powerful to protect us, but sometimes they can keep us in that little comfort zone that doesn't always serve our highest good as well. Yeah. So yeah, we get stuck in that loop, and I think it's when I first went into the world of coaching, one of the biggest questions is what do you want, and now I kind of rephrase it. Want for me, like, it can be an insidious word. Like, want creates more want, and then more want, and then we're never satisfied. So whenever I kind of ask myself or my students, what would you like, and it's different from the reality, well, then we start to look into what is in the way. Whether it's would you like to experience more momentum in your body, in your life, towards that new reality? Then what are the things, the obstacles in the way? That might be a belief, that might be like a core value. It could be a whole bunch of different things, assumptions that we make about the world that may or may not be true, but they form and sculpt our reality. Yeah, so I'm not sure, that was quite an elaborate answer for yeah.
I like it though. It's just, this is what I love about these conversations, is you never quite plan where they're going to go. We had a bit of a chat about where we're going to go a little bit with it.
Yeah. What
I love is that more of this wisdom that we have within us comes out, and we can really expand on where we go with it.
Absolutely.
I love it. Things I want to know next. Tell me about the day of Benny Fergusson, the movement monk.
Yeah.
How do you sleep? How do you wake up? What's going on a daily basis? How many hours do you like to work? What's the tell me through your day, because daily habits is a powerful thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and for me, life is a practice, and it's one thing that continues to develop in me. So we'll start. My sleeping habits have been somewhat different to most people I've spoken to over the years. I spent quite a bit of time living in a hammock, and that was my bed of choice. And a lot of people start to go, isn't that back pain? Don't you get back pain or anything like that? I've always been one to question things. Why do we do that? Why do we sleep in beds? So I keep questioning, and I keep refining my answer, in a way that's more, connected back to, I suppose, a natural way of being amidst this modern world that we live in. So
is it outdoors in the hammock or in a room?
Well, yeah, it was in a room, and it's a wonderful hammock, and I've got like it set up in this really nice arc. And anyway, but these days I sleep on the floor.
Cool.
Which sounds interesting to a lot of people, and I'll just sort of briefly explain it. That one of the principles that I've found very powerful and useful is that when we're creatures of adaptation as well, and whenever the things that we come into contact with most, whether that be people, and like there's that great analogy about we become or are influenced most by the 5 people we spend most time with. And I feel that really is true. And also the surfaces that we come in contact with most. So I spend most of my time sleeping on the floor because it is a hard, flat surface. And what that encourages in my body is to be soft and to relax.
I like that.
Yeah. So a lot of, and at the beginning it was confronting. It was challenging.
Carpet or on floorboards? What are we saying specifically?
Yeah. So just at the moment where I live, it's on carpet, and I just, I have like a thin blanket that I lay down on top of the floor, and I have like a rolled up shawl or towel as a pillow. It's like, yeah. And that's it. And it wasn't easy to start, but what it did teach me was to relax.
Yeah.
To let my body relax while I sleep. And it was kind of the start of me noticing how much tension my body was harboring at the time, and why I've become so passionate about helping others release it. And so there's bed. I spend time, and I noticed over the years, my body has become more and more energized because it's really been able to fully relax while I sleep. Yeah, which is, yeah. So I get up and I do my practice in the mornings, and that involves many different things. And it continues to evolve because I'm always coming from the angle of part gathering research to be a better teacher, and part also taking care of my own body. each and every day. Yeah, so that, and I've gone through many different systems, from Taoist practices to the whole functional rehab clinical type scene. And over the years I've found where east meets west and finding a good balance. So I generally do my practice, which involves breathing and stretching and all sorts of different things, just connecting back to my body in the morning, and that sets me up for the day. I have a good breakfast, and then I take my daughter to school. I get into
daughter.
Yeah. So through relationship, I have a 14-year-old daughter. And
wow.
Yeah, that's been a really enriching and challenging process as well. And, she's in the midst of, discovering who she is. And through the process, I learn a lot about myself. And
that's cool.
Yeah, so it's been a big thing of, balancing a life of passion and being productive at work, around family. And that's always something that I continue to refine and get better at. Yeah, so I go through my work day, and I do a lot of writing, I do a lot of filming and all that sort of thing. But I try and I love the theme of momentum that you set, by the way. And yeah, it's really good. And so for me, it is important to keep that momentum throughout the day, and to always check in with myself pretty much every hour. And am I in flow? Is this the right activity that I could be doing right now out of all of the activities that are possible? Because for me to be self-employed, there's a lot of choice. I can do anything, and that can be a blessing and a curse, and depending on the choice that is made. So my work days, they're not typical. If the flow is there, then I keep following that. But most of the time, this is probably the longest you'll get me sitting in one place. And even while I'm doing that, there's a lot of the part of my practice is being highly aware of what's going on in the internal side of the body, and being able to keep the flow of energy even while we're sitting still. And yeah,
people probably don't notice this as well, but I can notice how you're breathing.
Yes.
Not be something that everyone's noticing, but there's so many layers on what creates a phenomenal life.
Yes.
Talk us through that right now. How are you breathing?
Yeah, good notice. Not everyone will pick that up. Yeah. Well, yes. There's one principle that I learned when studying Tai Chi, and that was for things to come up, they must first go down first. So my breathing practice, and while I'm sitting, I'm sitting in, fairly comfortable pants, but I make sure my drawstring is fairly loose.
Yeah.
So I can breathe deeply down into the abdomen. But when I talk about breathing, there's three, I call it triad breathing. Not that there's any one way to breathe, but just for me to be relaxed. I first focus on breathing low, breathing down into the abdomen, then allowing that to come out, breathing wide, and then that flow into the back, and then all the way up behind the heart. Now, the beauty of this, it's taken me quite a while to get that into my unconscious frameworks, because I for a period, particularly when I was working back behind a desk all the time, I used to breathe through my mouth. I used to breathe into my chest. And the thing that I noticed about that was I was low in energy. I wasn't actually able to get air down into my organs. And when we breathe, if we breathe deep, it's like having a personal masseuse of your organs all day long, or as much as you can. And
it's gorgeous, huh?
It's breathing, it's like the Latin term is like the inhale, like to take in life, and to exhale, to expire, to die. And it's a really powerful metaphor of every breath I'm living and dying at the same time. So for me, that's been some of my biggest learnings when I've almost died. Not that I recommend it to anyone. But there was a few key moments. One was when I almost drowned. I don't remember the first. I was about 4, but there was another. I was a bit of a thrill seeker growing up, and over the years, I have I think I've brought the thrill inside a little bit more. I don't have to get it outside as much. But anyway, I had these great aspirations of flying in a wingsuit.
Oh, yeah.
And I may one day. I don't know whether, I have that drive to do that anymore for me personally. Anyway, so through the process, I had no idea how to get there. So I set out to meet other people who were successful in that. So I met this guy, Josh, and he was a real thrill seeker. And the first day we met, he goes, "Oh, well, I'm not going skydiving for a little while, but come out with me kayaking." And I hadn't been kayaking since I was on school camp. And the kayaks that you do then, they're it's like a cow in comparison. And I love cows, by the way. But he was in these custom tiny little kayak, and you basically do a fart and you tip over in this thing. And, anyway, tie that in with on this particular day when I lived back in Melbourne, we were on the Yarra River and it was flooded. So it was probably 2 to 3 times capacity to what it normally is. We get in, I'm a pretty quick learner, luckily, and we get to a rapid section. And it was just one moment when unconsciously I kind of freaked out a little bit, and then I was upturned. I was under the water, pitch black. It was freezing. And I got wedged between a rock and a hard place, so to speak. I got wedged under a tree. It felt like I was under there for a really long time. But what happened in that moment was, and I don't know, I suppose I could say that, I'm in touch with my spiritual side, but I try not to, flaunt it, or it can get really overdone these days, I think, in the new age. But there was a really powerful moment where something was speaking to me and it was like, now's not your time. And it guided me to what to do. And even though I couldn't see, I closed my eyes and I was in this skirt thing. Maybe I just didn't want to die in a skirt. And and I pulled myself out of the water, but it was a really big realization about the fragility of life. And yeah, so the closer I've come to that, I've really learned to, this day is an opportunity. You can make something different of it. You can choose, and I think in Australia, in the Western developed world, we have such choices.
Yeah.
And there's great power in that. We just have to sometimes step a little bit out of the comfort zone and make a different choice. Even if it doesn't feel wonderful at the time, it might be the very thing that we need.
Yeah, I like that. I'm looking this year at the path of most resistance.
Yeah.
And facing those things that have challenged us, if we apply that to movement, there's the things that challenge us the most that if our body just keeps doing what it's so used to, we'll never actually change. But I also like in that example with the kayak is there's always options.
Yes.
People I don't have a choice. When I have the money, I'll do this. When I have the time, I'll do this. When I have the blah, 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 I'll do this. Yeah. And I think that's such a great metaphor. Imagine yourself about to die and something greater than yourself, or something within yourself, whatever we like to look at it from whatever reference point.
Yes.
You what to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
What if we didn't have to wait for those extreme moments for that voice to guide us? And that's the power. And I think that's a really good delineation as well, because sometimes we can get pushed and we wait for those moments. We wait for an illness. We wait for pain, in our body, or we wait for bankruptcy, to go, oh, it's a sign, everything happens for a reason. Well, maybe the sign was there all along and maybe it was just a subtle thing. Yeah.
And it's kind of that whole pain pleasure thing. Sometimes maybe we need to go, okay, where is the momentum of this decision leading me in the next day, week, month, 5, 10 years, and then get the foresight and go, you know what, I'm going to make a powerful choice in a different direction today. It's sort of like, I love the metaphor of the plane flight. that if you're flying to San Francisco or wherever you're flying to, just 1 degree of course correction would mean you get to you might end up in Africa,
Yeah.
And apologies for my geography if that's completely not correct.
I like it.
Yeah.
It's fun, those small refinements though. So it's one thing I want to look at today, one of the cool things I was interested in is if we have tension in our body, if we have tension, say, within our team, within our organization, that's going to limit our momentum.
Yes.
And for me right now, I've got tension in my neck and shoulders, have done since there's been a couple of things that go on. Don't want to get into the story of it too much, but one of my near-death experiences, when I was 3 or 4, I almost drowned in a pool.
Yes.
And did you say you almost drowned when you were about that age?
Yes, in our spa bath, yeah.
Funny, huh? It's interesting when you connect up with someone you never met before, but how similar our life journeys and the vibration we've had and what it's created.
Yes.
And here we are, for whatever reason. And so looking at that, with the tension, I actually went over the roof of a car on a motorcycle. I was very blessed in that probably half an hour prior to that, I was doing a wheel stand down the same street at a high speed. This time there was kids around, so I was going about 50 kilometers an hour, but you hit a car at 50 kilometers an hour, it still hurts. And somehow my body, this is the car, my body hit there. Instead of going straight into the car, for some reason I launched, and apparently I passed out for this, but apparently I did this perfect gymnastic roll and landed.
Wow.
And this is the other thing too, like preparation is the key to spontaneity, because if ingrained in our neurology, in our movement, in our bodies, we're prepared for times of extreme pressure, well, we're just going to keep having more momentum.
Yes.
Think about it in your business. When tough times come?
Yes.
The tough times get easier.
Yeah.
Like, remember the first time you had that when you ran low on money and then it was really hard? Now it's like, oh, I've got 50 million options. I'm all good. But let's talk about this specifically.
Yes.
Neck and shoulder tension. I sometimes do this. I might have done it a little bit on the call today, not too much.
Yes.
Yeah. Talk us through this, because it'd be nice. I'm sure a lot of people experience neck and shoulder tension, but it'd just be good to get an insight into your work specifically on something.
Absolutely. Well, so the interesting thing to talk about with, we started with the seed of neck and shoulder tension. The one thing I will say is sometimes we can focus so hard on the area of tension that we miss the source. Got it. Yeah. So the first thing I would say for anyone experiencing it, yourself included, is that that may be where we're experiencing it, but it might not be the area that we actually need to address. Sure. So the first thing that I noticed when I started to get into the work of releasing tension from the body was to notice first that the whole body is connected by a network of fascia. And for people who aren't familiar with the term fascia, I would recommend to get familiar with it because it's pretty important to your whole body. It basically, and science is catching up with what has been understood in Eastern philosophy and internal martial arts for many, many, thousands of years. But my experience of fascia, and I like to comment on my palpable experience rather than just like a scientific theory of it, is fascia is a network of tissue that it connects everything. And I see that there's only one piece of fascia in the whole body because there's no start or no end. Yet we have many different muscles and tendons and ligaments, and they all start and end at the bones. So, every a muscle that does that has an insertion or an origin and an insertion point. Yeah. Now, when we build up tension in the body, neck and shoulders is a good example. There's tension that is presenting in the muscles of that origin and insertion point. Maybe between the cranial plates all the way down to the shoulder blades. Yeah. So, however, if we even just do this, it changes the amount of tension in the whole body, all the way from this finger down to my big toe. Whether I feel it or not, it changes the profile of my whole body. So I started asking these questions and started to look into, okay, what is the nature of tension? It's predominantly, it happens unconsciously. And this is like the breathing. Say we've spent a long time breathing shallowly, then we've actually increased the amount of tension in some area of the body. Yeah. And particularly, so the breath can fill the whole torso, and every breath can be like an opportunity to stretch and open up. But say we've gone through many years, maybe stress has come up, and we kind of, I think we know what stress looks like in the body, you know, like we know what it feels like. We know what anger feels like all of these like intense emotions. If we entertain them for a long time, then they could present themselves in the physical body. So the first thing, well, two principles so far to understand is that your whole body is connected and unified by fascia. One intention will be to get the obstacles out of the way, that being tense muscles, so then you can feel and use the fascia as one organism. So that's a really powerful thing. The other is to understand how the mind innately affects the ability of your body to move, depending on the thoughts that we harbor. So if we were to look at, you know, let's just say, I'll put it into the scenario like that we were on like a coaching call and you were to ask me about this. One thing that I would start to ask, and we don't need to demonstrate this now, but is when we're standing, are we able to relax our weight into the feet? So, and are we able to feel the actual center of our feet while we stand and relax the weight downwards? So for a lot of people, when they're sitting, standing, all of that sort of thing, their weight, even though if it's just a degree, you know, this builds up over time. And this is where we go beyond just, you know, daily exercise into being mindful, being highly aware of how we're carrying our body in relation to gravity each and every moment of every day.
Yeah, like total awareness.
Total awareness all the time. And initially, you know, like your awareness grows. You know, so for me, like I can become aware of my breathing, I can become aware of my posture, I can become aware of my heart rate, I can become aware of all of these things very simply because I've just practiced the small little components and just built up this vast network. So, you know, the thing that I would notice, particularly with neck and shoulder pain, is it's a rising of energy. Once we learn to sync, then everything can relax.
Nice.
Yeah. So that's, you know, maybe a complex way. For me, a very basic way of just looking at it, of just going, okay, if there's only two forces that act upon the body, and that is the lifting and the sinking, which is really the effects against gravity, how can we allow gravity to work with us in this moment? And one interesting thing, and I don't like cues so much, but can be just imagining the head is sort of like a blade of grass being plucked up and the shoulders are like a waterfall. Yeah, so if they were naturally stretching up, and this happens with the breath. So we inhale, the spine naturally expands, and then we exhale and the spine releases. The shoulders relax down. The tissue of the neck relaxes down. So that's just one little practice that practice consistently over the course of a day, a week, a month, a year. All of a sudden, the body changes.
I like it.
Yeah. But the only way to start to do that would be to become aware of the thoughts that we're entertaining, the emotions that we're entertaining, and catch them and go, oh, hey, stress. And just go, all right, I see you. I acknowledge, I drop it, and I switch to something else.
I like that.
Yeah.
Catching it every day. Because that's the thing. It becomes almost like, even if we do the massage, the chiropractic, the qigong, everything, but that memory's there.
Yes. The body is, the cells have a memory. And this was, you know, all of my work, it definitely doesn't come from a higher place of being above and an intellectual place of going, oh, what do I talk about? I'll talk about tension. You know, that's something that everyone has a challenge with, and it's true. But I did too. You know, I had a back that kind of resembled the plumbing under a kitchen sink. Yeah, and I went through.
Scoliosis, or what was going on?
Yeah, it was extreme scoliosis, and that, for me, you know, I started off as an athlete when I was up until I was 16, almost 17. I played volleyball for Australia and on the junior side, and I was, you know, I was a sports person. I was fit, but fit for volleyball.
Yeah,
and then I went on in a different direction. And I got into weightlifting and strongman and all of that sort of thing. And all the time I was just building up tension until, like tightening a proverbial vice, just kind of things gave up. And it was, there was many different points of origin of this. But my body basically, there was so much tension that it did this. Yeah, so it was intense. So I had to learn about all of these things and overcome these many different layers. And you reminded me when talking about the chiro, I went to a chiro every week for many months, and my spine, like, she would just adjust in the same spot, you know, like in the few vertebrae of my cervical and my thoracic spine. And then we'd free it up, and I was like, oh yeah. And I could do all the, you know, the pinch tests that they do and all of that sort of thing. And then I'd get better then, and then I'd come back a week later and it was the same again.
Frustrating.
So why am I reciprocating this? So I went a bit deeper and I started to go, well, you know what? Like, it's your life. Take responsibility and learn about your own body. And so I learned a thing or two, and I studied with a Shaolin monk in the UK, and I studied Taoist practices and Tai Chi and lots of internal practices to start to balance out all of the external stuff that I was doing. And I became aware, and I developed the ability to actually feel my spine.
Yeah, right.
Once I could do that and learn to articulate it and move it in just small little ways, then I could free up. I became my own chiropractor.
Nice. Which is traditionally what we would have done.
Exactly. Yeah. You know, like we used our body. There was a necessity for it. You know, like these days we can become giants of the mind.
Yeah.
And, you know, we can survive, you know, with great intellect. But is that really living? That's what I ask. Yeah. And I've learned that the body, once you connect to it, it's like a giant antenna. You know, and even when I do this, I can tell when I'm in flow, because there's energy surging through my body.
Yeah.
You know, I'm like, yes. You know, and that's an experience that, you know, I really love to share with people. And taking the tension away is a big part of that process.
Yeah.
And my life's changed dramatically as a result.
Yeah, tell me about that, like your business, your relationships, your family, your daughter. That's what people are going to be interested in, because everyone, as soon as you say, you know, my program's called 90 Days of Momentum. As soon as you say that, people are like, oh, I got to make more money.
Yes.
Well, cool, yeah, great, make more money. But it's one element in your life.
Yes.
There's a dirt bike right now. That sounds like fun. those things, like, as soon as people talk about momentum, they're like business, money. It's so fixated on one thing, kind of like we talked about with the neck.
Yes.
We're going across the broad spectrum of things, which is where I always love to share with people to get to. Not even get to, just to choose, to be in that space of having it all. What's changed for you?
Yeah.
10
Well,
years ago?
What was that?
Think about you 10 years ago.
Yeah. So 10 years ago, I was 20. And I was coming out of uni. And the interesting thing was that I was spending a lot of time seeking. I was so focused on, you know, and at the time, I was set to take over our family business, actually, which is a winery out in the Yarra Valley. So that's why I went into the field of business. But for me, it was all about, you know, I would earn X to get Y, and then I'll be happy.
How'd that work out?
Well, I was never happy, really. Like, honest, like if I'm really being honest, and if I don't like to compare too much, but if I fast forward into this present moment, just being able to have like sit and have this conversation, and
what day is it? You don't even, doesn't even matter, right?
it doesn't, the time changes, the perception of time changes. So, and this is something that it's taken me quite some time of just observing my patterns of thought and all of that sort of thing over the years. And so, I went down the path and I started up a gym, and probably one of the first big movement facilities, movement focused facilities, is relatively new to the world of health and fitness. Like these days, it's like, it used to be like bodybuilding and all of that, like gym equipment and all the isolation came in. And, I've seen so many trends come and go, and then functional training. And now these days, movement is more of a trend. And it's a complex thing. But anyway, without going too much off the topic. So I started a gym called Cohesion, and we ran that successfully for about 6 years. And, led by my passion, but still, there was, I need to make money to keep the doors open for the people and all of that sort of thing. And I was pretty stressed because the primary focus was on the dollars, keeping the business going. So there was a moment, and I made a big decision, and I left everything, and I moved up to Queensland with my family now, with my partner and our daughter. And that was almost 12 months ago, to Queensland, to effectively nothing. I work with a lot of people online, so I was able to, continue that. But I left a brick and mortar business that I built over 6 years. I left all my friends, all my family, all of the things that made me comfortable, but I've never been happier.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, so for me, the more I vest my happiness in an external reality, the more vulnerable that is to be taken away. So these days now, I take great happiness in having good conversations with people, in connecting with other passionate people, in helping other people who are committed and ready to follow, maybe the footsteps that hopefully I've, inspired in some way, shape or form, just by walking them. Yeah. And yeah, so that's a pretty big answer, but there's a lot of facets to it that I feel people could use. Yeah.
I definitely feel people connect to that, because that comes up a lot. Everyone looks at where they are, and then they want to know, well, how am I going to get there?
Yes.
And there's all these marketing packages telling people how, which is not how the person who actually is marketing to them did it.
Yes.
People 7 steps to success. Sometimes the 7 steps are awesome.
Yes.
They can be really good. And sometimes they're empty. It just depends where the person's functioning from. But often there's no how.
Yeah. And I think probably a more powerful question I have been asked and asked myself is who? Who do you need to be to have that experience?
I like that.
Yeah.
To have that experience.
Because then the how, it unfolds in front of you.
Mm-hmm.
The how becomes minutia by comparison.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You tapped on that's in the 90 days of momentum. Who are you being right now?
Yeah. Yeah. In this conversation, I've got a lot of stories. I hope that's okay.
Yeah, stories are awesome. I love it.
Awesome. I once, I had the privilege to hear a guy named Jamie Caddo speak. And for those who aren't familiar with this man, he played in a band called Faithless, which, it's kind of like a dance electronic type band. But the thing that I really liked that he did was a project called One Giant Leap, which his dream of that was he loved world music, but he could never listen to a full album. And so what he wanted to do is create a full album of world music that was really great from start to finish, without just one hidden gem of a song. So his dream was to go around and meet all these like amazing musicians in, cultures that you just would never hear, like from India to Africa to, Asia, and all of that, these amazing like musicians and vocalists, and then combine that with his contacts in the music industry of like the lead singer of REM, I can't remember his name, Katie Lang, all these amazing collaborations.
Mhm.
But to do a project of this size, it was going to cost millions of dollars. And hearing him speak about it, the one thing that resonated me with that he spoke about was that you never know when you're that one conversation away from like that $1 million deal. And, he was having all these conversations, and it really reminded me of who am I being in this moment to then be able to have the opportunity come towards me. And he was outside of a business meeting to get funding with this Russian guy. And, just in the moment, he was vibing with it. Like the Russian guy's feeling it. And, he's got money to burn. And he's like, I believe in you. I want to give you, he gave him $1 million. And I think it may even be more.
Awesome.
And the thing that he said is you never know when you're one conversation and a crazy Russian away from $1 million.
Nice.
And so that once he had that, the how unfolded. But
I like it too, because the money's wherever it is. The resources are where it is. It's interesting, huh? The being energy though is so powerful.
Yeah, exactly. And I love all of that because, like, for me, the body, it's a reflection of who we are in the moment. And people feel that, like you are able to pick up on just the way I breathe. And that gives you a certain understanding beyond all the things I say about myself. Like that one thing, that says a billion words that I couldn't explain. I can't fake that. It's part of me. It's who I am. And, and we develop a deeper connection just through that one little thing.
Well, people even say it. I'm feeling you.
Yeah.
You know that saying? And I've had it where one of my quotes is, good vibes is like $1 billion in your bank account.
Yeah.
The amount of experiences that money can't buy that I've had, literally can't buy it, that I've had in my lifetime. I just feel like that good vibes because you're showing up and having fun, having the best time ever, the best day ever, just talking to the right people at the right time. It's cool. And I know that it is a daily cultivation. That's why I was really getting clear on the habits before that you have.
Yes. And
talk us through that in the momentum. Talk us through some of the low times, the tough times.
Yeah. Well, I think
it could be like a day away. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Every day I'm like, and we're talking about some really great, like energizing, inspiring stuff. I think it's important to understand that beneath it all, every day I have that little voice in my head that is very happy staying small.
Yeah.
Like I'm sure I could like just sit on the couch, eat ice cream and play video games for my whole life. And there's a part of me that's like, yeah, that's easy, and there's part of me that gets sad. There's, all those things, but it's a choice in each and every moment. And I'm not to say that I would be perfect at it. There's definitely the low times, but what it does teach me is, you never know, like the sweet without the sour. Yeah. And I think it's probably about embracing those and seeing them and maybe sitting with them and starting to, and I don't want to get cliched or anything, but having some gratitude for them.
Yeah.
And going, you know what, this is wonderful, but this is teaching me, that's not my highest purpose. That's not, the big step that I can take. And that big step might just be to take a big, deep breath, to smile and give the one that you love a hug. Like some of my teachings have been in Hawaiian teachings, and there's a ritual or a process called Ho'oponopono.
Oh, talk us through that, because I've heard a little bit, but I'm not that familiar with it. So talk me through it.
Yeah, so I was really fortunate to have a Hawaiian elder named Kumu Brenda, and she came from Hawaii, and she's one of the lineage holders of, the more indigenous, Hawaiian teachings that haven't been distorted. And she took us through this process, and it's, like all of the great stuff, it's so simple. It's just, it's on the premise of thank you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, I love you. And not necessarily in that order. And when we went through that process, we started off and we wrote down for the people in our lives that we might have felt that there was tension between. for the feelings that we were harboring in ourselves that was creating tension. And we started to develop that peace with them, you know. And it was very interesting when we went through this, and there was, you know, maybe I think 10 or 15 people that I was learning with Kuma Brenda with. And pretty much everyone forgot to write themselves, forgot to forgive themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah, forgot to thank themselves, you know, forgot to say sorry to themselves. And for me, that's a skill that I've learned to cultivate over the years, because it, you know, I realize that I carry that into every other interaction that I will have. I carry that in my step, in the way I walk, carry that in my conversation, and that leads to another conversation, which leads to another conversation. All of a sudden, your whole life is different because of just being kind to yourself first. Yeah. So ho'oponopono is the Hawaiian practice. I found that really, really powerful. Yeah.
I like you. Thank you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. I love you.
Yes. Yeah. And just those things. And, you know, like there was some specific wording that she used, but that, you know, really I think we've all got those relationships, whether it be in business, whether it be in our personal lives, in our social lives, where there's that unspoken tension, you know, and in ourselves. And just those 4 premises can really start to dissolve that.
I like that.
Yeah. Those things, you know, like planting a very small seed can grow into a mighty oak. And the question is what is the seed that is deep inside of us that we're planting, and what is that growing into?
I like that.
Yeah.
That's what's so good. One of the things I'm grateful for with a lifestyle, having moved up to Cairns from Sydney and I guess slowed my life down a whole lot. I'm just a different person. I was a happy kid in Sydney. I'd always make the best of everything and put a positive frame and spin on it. And I was pretty into the whole personal development thing, and I could do the goal setting and all that sort of stuff. But I was always a bit restless.
Yes.
Yeah, then we were always like, what's next? Not like a little kid, not just for fun, but almost like a need or a necessity. And now, whether it's because I'm a couple of years older than I was then, you know, I'm 37, I'm a big boy now.
Yeah.
Just the other day. It's so exciting just to feel this limber and fresh at this particular age, and knowing that, you know, in 10 years' time, I can even improve how my body functions.
Yes.
There's a different way. We talk about the momentum as well. To say looking forward for you in 10 years' time, for your clients in 10 years' time, how would you love to move? What would you love your life to be like?
Yeah. Well, there's a movie that's I really like. It's one of the original Jackie Chan movies called Drunken Master. and maybe take the drunk side away. Even though I grew up in a winery, these days, you know, alcohol, I enjoy it, but I don't intend to be a drunken master. But his master in this movie, who's the holder of this ancient lost martial art. I try to remember, maybe it's called Drunken Kung Fu or something like that. But he's this old guy, and he's just got this spring in his step. You know, he's able to move freely. He's still a fully functioning, able-bodied human. So I have seen, and I'm inspired by, particularly in the East, you know, the old master guys, you know, those guys that very humble and understated, but then like the young student comes up and they're all with the bravado and the gusto, and the old man is just refined. One movement makes a very big, powerful difference. Mm-hmm. So for me, you know, if I were to track for 10, 20, 30, 40 years, you know, I intend to continue to feel alive in my body, to be embodied, you know, with an ability to move. And that influences the practices that I do today. Because for me, it's not about just looking good on the beach and all of that sort of thing. All of that will fade. I'm sure my body will take many different physical forms, but the feeling, and there's countless examples of older people who still move phenomenally.
Yeah.
And, you know, that I intend to be one of those people, and I intend to take people down that path who I think there was one thing, if there's one more story that I can add. there's a lady, her name's Sandy, and she really inspired me. I love working with older people because they have a deep sense of appreciation, particularly if they're not so mobile.
Yeah.
They learn how important it is when they lose it. And I don't want any younger people, and I see my friends in their like late 20s, 30s, or like they're already starting to lose it. I don't want that. It breaks my heart.
Afraid even to jump over rocks or off a waterfall.
Yeah. Like a few friends of mine, we went to Bounce a little while ago, which is like an indoor trampoline park, and I love it. And I think probably 50% of them ended up with a pretty big injury that day, whether it was like their knees or their back or their shoulders. Like, we haven't got the robustness to play anymore. But anyway, Sandy, she inspired me. She came back, she had like hip reconstruction. She'd just come off chemotherapy, osteoporosis, the whole kit and caboodle. Like she had some trouble. But it was just through small little actions that the body started to regenerate. Small little practices accumulated daily, and throughout the course of a couple of years, she got this spring back in her step. And there's actually, since I've moved away from Melbourne, now a great friend of mine, Oscar, is now working with her, and he's continued the practice that we started. And there's a small little video that I'm releasing soon anyway, just Sandy playing in the park. And I've just learned that, over the years, we can, like, aging can be a graceful process. And yeah, I would love that for everyone that I talk with, for some of that to rub off on them.
I just know this is the thing. If you play every day and you love life,
yeah,
it just seems to change how your body functions too.
Yes.
It's interesting. Like, while I'm on this phone, and we'll Zoom to you, while we're making this video, while we're having this conversation, my body's happy. Yeah. My feet are wiggling around under the table. It's cool.
Yeah.
And it's like being this big joy bomb. It's like you're 7, but you're a grown up. And it gets noticed. People are like, what drug are you on? What are you doing? Yeah. And then it's an interesting one, huh?
It is. Yeah. I think that's because I climb a lot of trees, that's a really nourishing part of my physical practice. And, even though it's much more than the physical, but, and you do get a lot of weird looks. People are like, there's a grown man in a tree. What are you on? And, I'm on life.
Yeah.
And like it keeps us young.
How do you receive that judgment when you're a bit different?
Yeah. That's something that it was a real obstacle for me at the start, because if I'm like, say if I'm waiting for an appointment or something like that, I'd rather just squat down or sit on the floor with my legs crossed or something like that. And initially people gave some really weird looks, and I understand, because you don't see it all the time in Australia. If you go to China or India, you see that more often. It's a bit more not natural. But in the beginning, I was a bit averse to that judgment, and it did make me think, I've got to just fit into this mold, like this conditioning. But then I was just kind of like, well, who am I doing this for?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, I do one thing, I feel great. I do another thing, I feel less great. It was a no-brainer for me. So I had to start to let it go, and then invite people in and go, well, hey, come sit with me, come. And they're like, oh shit, I haven't done that since I was a little kid, and then all of a sudden, like we started to play and interact and engage together. It's like when two dogs meet each other, they're like moving around and they're sniffing, and like it's like we've got this body, like that's, if I was there with you, I'd like give you a big hug and shake you around a bit, like
man,
who knows? Like, yeah, to me that's a part of the human experience, not just being locked into what everyone has been told is good manners or whatever. As long as we're not doing harm to any other people, then I can't see, the downside.
I love that. And it brings joy to so many people when you're willing to do life a bit different. Like, one of my fun examples was I'm friends with the guys at Paleo Cafe.
Yeah.
So, and part of their retreat. And you would love it, man. All these people that are inspired and passionate about their business. You know, they're doing these cafes to provide really high quality food to people and stuff. I was running late for the evening event. I jumped on my pink skateboard. It was semi-formal. So I went in a Bond suit, like complete suit, tie, everything, like black tie.
Yeah.
On a pink skateboard, just rolled in, jumped in. Hey, everyone, how you doing?
Awesome.
People love it. I picked up more clients, made different friends. The people that are the award winners at the Paleo Cafe, 3 of them were the ones who were naturally attracted to me. Because they're different. You don't get the same results being the same. There's a little momentum principle.
Yes.
You're going to be the same as everyone else and expect a different result. Craziness.
Yeah. It reminds me of, there was a book that I read a long time ago by a guy, really powerful thought leader in the world of business and marketing named Seth Godin. You're probably familiar with him.
I love him.
Yeah. He wrote a book called Purple Cow. And, you know, it just, like, this reminds me of that quite a lot. It's like if you were to look in a paddock of cows and there was one purple cow, what one would you look at? You know the one you're going to, like, so it's,
I love that.
Yeah, and we've all got that we've all got the purple cow inside of us. We don't, you know, like, everyone is so unique. You know, there's hundreds of, you know, maybe thousands of people talking about movement and the body and all that sort of thing, but like, we're all unique. You know, lots of people talking about business and all that sort of thing, but it's like, who are you? Cutting down to the core, let that come out. Yeah, and I think kids really get that, you know, and I love that about kids, and it's one of the most rewarding things of me being a dad, of seeing how fragile, you know, as we build our identities, and you know, also being a part of that, you know, helping someone discover themselves.
Yeah, I like it.
Not just someone who I think that they should be. Yeah, and I've had to let go of a lot of that sort of things, you know, all the stories, all that sort of stuff.
Oh, definitely having a teenager, you're probably sitting there with all the health foods in your house and they want to eat, drink Coke and have chips and live their own path. The guidance, it's an interesting one.
Yeah, and really confronted my values, you know, because like health for me it's, you know, it's probably, it's pretty obvious. It's right up there.
Yeah, you love it.
So, you know, I see it, I feel it, and it's important. So, but yes, she's definitely going down that path of, you know, like, there's sugary foods that come into the house, and at the beginning, like, it pissed me off, you know, to be honest. Like, it made me really, like, heartfelt sad, because to see what that could be doing to her body. But then I just let go of all of that and just thought, well, she will only learn through experiencing, but at least she has the choice.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah. And it is, when it comes down to that individual choice, I've done it with one of my coaching clients. She always smokes.
Yes.
And then one of my clients came up here for a weekend intensive with Ryan Nasser, and she actually stopped smoking that weekend. She did the qigong practices and all the energy stuff and a whole lot of things. She's like, I don't need to smoke anymore. That was one of her outcomes.
Yes.
Her phone normally rings 200 times a day, didn't ring. These funny little things that can happen when we change the energy of our reality. And she left 2 packets of cigarettes. So one of my other clients was there on the Monday. I gave her 2 packets and then she quit too.
Powerful, huh?
Flipped her whole universe when I was in allowance for her. I was like, cool. Imagine that, to sit down with your teenage daughter and say, oh, let's have a can of Coke.
Yeah.
No, you don't necessarily need to do it. I don't even like the taste. I tried it once after I was trying to clear all my points of view about food. I just don't even like it. It just doesn't really resonate with my molecules.
Yes. And I think that's a really good distinction as well, is that a lot of the time we can really try and push things mentally. And when the body's in a certain state, you know, practices like Qigong are great. You know, when the energy is moving and we feel it inside of us, all of a sudden that substance comes into the body and it just goes, well, I don't actually, like, that's not right for me. There's a universal communication that takes place. And then all of a sudden we don't have to push against the body that's not yet there. Yeah. So it's, I like, you know, I tip my hat to you, because that's kind of how these things happen. It doesn't have to be so hard. If we surround ourselves with good people, who allow those experiences, who don't make it good or bad.
Yeah.
Then all of a sudden we get this space, this freedom. And and that's a big part of my work as well in the body, to create freedom to choose.
I love that.
Yeah.
No wonder we get on so well.
Yeah.
So let's just go through some final key insights, takeaways people can implement in their life now before we finish it up and so forth.
Yeah.
Just 5 things you're going to recommend people do right away, just by coming on, jumping here. Just thank everyone. You guys are awesome. You've actually stayed till the end of the video. You're watching here. You're going to get the gold right now. So we're going to put 5 key insights in here. Hit me. Number 1.
Okay. Number 1.
Real quick, clear, concise, bang.
All right. Be present with your breathing as much as possible. Be mindful with the environments that you interact with every day. Move your body regularly for you, not for yoga, not for CrossFit, not for whatever it is. Move from your own creative space. Do that every day. Spend time in nature.
Nice.
See it reflected in yourself. See that you are nature. Is that 4?
It's 4. We've got 1 more.
Number 5. Ask continually better questions.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah. The better the question you ask, you'll always get an answer to your question. So refine your questions. Keep refining, keep refining, keep refining.
I love that.
Yeah.
Part of my daily practice.
Yeah.
Better and better and better and better at getting those questions.
Yes.
Then the choice. One of my ones now is being a barefoot billionaire.
Yeah. What does that mean? What does that mean to you?
For me, it just means creating from a space of innovation, creating from a space of more than enough, and absolutely trusting my knowing in every moment.
Yeah.
Without doubt, without hesitation, just going, this is what I know to be and show up as.
Yeah.
For me, that's Mother Teresa, who had no money, to Elon Musk, who's creating this magic in the world, Richard Branson.
Yeah.
And they're still, when you look at all these guys, they're playing.
Yes.
They're moving, they're inspiring. So for me, I like to walk around in bare feet. I seem to leave my thongs everywhere and then I just don't have any to wear. Yeah. Fun, right?
Yeah.
That's the thing. Ultimately, where I love to play in life is that money never becomes a limitation for creating the life I love.
Yeah.
And where I see in terms of legacy is, interviewing more people like yourself and getting great content. One, for me, I'm learning right now. This is amazing. I get to chat with a new friend and I really learn from you. We get to connect at a heart level and we share some content with the world, and also to seed projects, those legacy projects. Those things that guys are doing in their backyards right now.
Yeah.
The organic retreat style properties that need to be activated.
Yeah.
The inventions that got to be activated. Things to increase our quality of clean air and clean water. And
there was one before we go. There was just such an inspiring, a guy that has changed the way that we interact with honey. And
awesome. Tell me.
Yeah, he started a Kickstarter campaign, and I think they needed a couple 100,000 to get this up and running. And basically, the process of honey, I'll just quickly go through it, is quite an arduous process. You've got to get in the bee suit. It disrupts the bees. It's like tough for a human as well. You've got to take the hive out. You've then got to harvest the honey and all that sort of stuff. He's developed a hive that has this honeycomb network that when you turn a switch, they all lock like that.
Yeah, wow.
And then the honey pours out of a tap. Doesn't disturb the bees. Doesn't disturb the human. This, I think, has raised over $16 million. This invention that came out of a backyard.
And make people's lives so much better, because who doesn't want to have bees?
Yeah. And they say that bees are like the key of our survival as a civilization. And I don't know if I fully understand all of the dynamics of bees, but they're pretty amazing creatures. And
do you like that energy? I used to talk about this a while ago. A bee goes around pollinating everything.
yes.
They're just floating around, not really quite sure what they're being.
Yeah.
Out of it. I'm going around being and buzzing around, and all of a sudden I've gone here and I've gone here, I've gone here and I've gone here.
Yes.
Imagine that's what we're doing right now.
Yeah. I think to even take that a step further, the thing I love about bees that we can recognize in ourselves is that a bee understands alchemy.
Yeah, nice.
The process of making two different substances or more into something completely unique. To effectively make something, combine things to make it a completely unique and new substance.
Awesome.
We all have that ability in our lives, in our bodies, and it's all coming through us if we allow it. If we take the time, come back, just take a deep breath, and then take a next more conscious step.
I love it, man. Oh, I just want to sit here on the laptop all day and connect with you. We're going to be catching up soon in person, which is exciting. I'm going to be down the Gold Coast on the 21st, 22nd of November. Just about to put that in my calendar.
Awesome.
Excited to come see you. But that aside, let's let all the people know how we can find you, my man.
Yes. So you can. Yeah.
Below. But let us know what's the best way. If I right now want to book in for 8 weeks with Benny and I want to start working with you, what's the process?
Yes. So, well, first of all, there's a whole bunch of free resources that I provide for people to get to know me a little bit more as well at my site, movementmonk.xyz. There's me being creative. Well, I had .com, I had .xyz. XYZ screamed out to me. So
that's cool.
Yeah. So I went for it. Yeah. You remember it now. And, so movementmonk.xyz, that's where my current project is. People can email me at aloha@movementmonk.xyz as well.
Yeah.
And so I've got a range of different things. I've got an online program that I've just released called Embodied Flexibility. And that's really all about building a foundation in your body and shaking up the whole world of flexibility and just distilling a lot of the myths that I see about it that actually don't help people get flexible.
Yeah, nice.
And I'll soon be releasing my technique called the tension release technique, which is really going to be empowering yoga teachers, PTs, and a lot of health professionals to help other people around the world to release tension from their body that's stored deep down, and to help that improve all of the stuff that we're talking about today, to make more powerful choices in their life and to live, not to live this life, to live this life.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
I love this call, Tal. I'm buzzing.
Me too.
So, absolute pleasure having you on here today to have a conversation with. Look forward to meeting you in person. And, any questions at all, hit Benny up at aloha@movementmonk.xyz or check out the website.
Thanks so much for having me, man.
Awesome. Pleasure.